Hello and good afternoon. My name is Paula Gonzalez and I am the Senior Manager of Membership Growth for AAPA. Welcome to AAPA's third webinar of 2021. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, I know we are all doing the best that we can to stay connected to each other and to our colleagues and peers, and to stay informed and up to date on what is going on in our industry. And I know many of us are very eager and excited to get back to doing these types of programs in person by attending conferences and seminars and trade shows, and hopefully we will be doing that soon. But since we unfortunately can't be doing that just yet, AAPA has been working to bring you content, news, information, education, and opportunities to connect throughout the year through virtual programs such as this one. We have lots of exciting programs planned for 2021, so if you're keen to learn about additional opportunities to connect and learn, please hang around for just a few minutes following the conclusion of this presentation, as I will be happy to share with you a few additional ways that you can engage, learn, and network in 2021 through AAPA. Since we have not been able to meet in person, we have added a new benefit for new members this past year to allow our new members to hold a webinar to present themselves to the membership and showcase their expertise and thought leadership. So we are excited to hear what this new member has to share with us today. If you are listening today and you are not a member and you would like an opportunity to present a webinar as a new member, as well as other opportunities to get in front of and build relationships with our port members, I will be sharing my contact information at the end of this presentation. So now we'll go ahead and get started. I would like to present our presenters, our new member, Aries Security. We have, as you can see, two gentlemen with us today. Greg Richardson is the Senior Vice President of System Technologies and Product Development. Greg has led Aries Security's software design and development efforts to pioneer next generation situational awareness and security software solutions. With over 20 years of experience implementing highly intuitive software applications and interface designs, he has applied this knowledge to address a wide variety of security issues. Mr. Richardson leads the company in conceptualizing new ideas and tools that constantly improve Aries capabilities across their multi-industry applications. And also, Coleman Manus, who will be leading the webinar, is Public Safety and Critical Infrastructure Representative. Coleman leads Aries Security's business development and project implementation teams across multiple sectors, including corporate, public safety, and critical infrastructure. His nearly 10 years of experience has been focused on solving complex security and safety issues utilizing next-gen technology and applications. He brings extensive experience in enterprise-level security, emergency operations, and asset protection, with a specialty in multifaceted projects that span throughout a region or across various industries and partners. Coleman and Greg, I turn it over to you. Thanks so much for being our presenters today.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and a big thanks to AAPA for hosting us today. I want to get started by thanking everybody for joining and taking the time out of your day to review what we're calling the future of Seaport and security safety technology. So what we've done is put together a brief presentation on what we've seen throughout the industry and throughout the other industries that we serve to give you kind of a highlight of what we've seen as being prevalent as the next-gen technology solutions available for Seaports that apply to both security and safety. So as a brief agenda for today, we will be going through a quick introduction, which includes a background and recent updates for our company, as well as port security grant program spending and priorities, and the future trends of Seaports that we've seen throughout our customers and partners throughout various industries. We've also put together brief highlights of future security technologies and future safety technologies that can apply to security, operations, and safety at Seaports and with partnering organizations. So a big theme of this presentation is being able to utilize one or multiple solutions for multiple aspects at your Seaport to include security, safety, and operations. We'll end with a quick wrap up and then a Q&A session. And if you do have any questions as we go throughout this presentation, you can load those into the chat that's available in the webinar, and we will hopefully address those at the end, pending our time at the end as well. So again, if you do have any questions, load those into the chat and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. And if we're not able to at the end, we can certainly follow up with you directly to talk about those questions. So for just a quick overview of area security, our software solutions have been in development since 1999. They are Safety Act certified by the Department of Homeland Security and designated, so they're Safety Act designated and certified solutions. We do have extensive expertise in developing advanced systems for large companies, regions, states, and even countries in some instances. We are a GSA schedule holder and a certified small business enterprise. And our software solutions apply to a very wide range of industries and applications, with having active contracts with top-tier seaports and their partners, including global terminal operators, Fortune 100 companies, U.S. federal government agencies, law enforcement, and about 2/3 of the North American nuclear industry. So our applications are currently serving a very wide range of needs, covering the security, operations, and safety of these customers. Most recently, we've done a lot of work to enhance our solutions through acquisitions, partnerships, and updates. So our Avert suite of solutions apply to what we call the physical security lifecycle of needs. This physical security lifecycle entails the assessment and design phase of security and response configurations, implementing what you've learned through those assessments, and implementing those in your training exercises and virtual tabletop training drills, and then implementing what you've learned in both those assessments and training exercises into your actual operations and response through tools like command and control, common operating platforms, and even going as far as AI. So most recently, we've acquired the company called Vidseas, or certain assets of Vidseas, which was a creator of the PSIN and of various integrations and connectors. But they have a very diverse rules engine that we've recently acquired as well. But more importantly, we've partnered with a large handful of innovative companies. So this has introduced us to a lot of new solutions, both within the Seaport industry and within other industries that we serve, helping partners develop advanced solutions or then bringing advanced solutions to us to assess. Also recently, we've performed a lot of work with the U.S. Air Force through their AFWorks program, which is basically the innovation department for the Air Force that pairs small business with the Air Force to innovate new next-gen capabilities for the Air Force as a whole. So we were one of 92 companies selected out of thousands that applied, and we were actually one of the top out of the 92 providers to help build what they're calling the base of the future down in Tyndall Air Force Base out of Panama City. So this has led to a lot of major developments with our solutions and a lot of cool new technology being put out there to show what the next generation of Air Force bases can look like in the next 10, 20, or 30 years. So their Air Force Base down in Tyndall was heavily damaged by Hurricane Michael in Florida over a year or two ago. And instead of building that Air Force Base back to the standard, they're using this as an opportunity to build that base of the future. So one of the key things we're doing for the Air Force Base is using 3D modeling and simulation to optimize their security design. And the reason I want to bring this up is, outside of our partnerships and agreements that we have with other next-gen providers, we do a lot of work in terms of assessing new technologies and the effectiveness of these technologies at our customer sites. So our 3D modeling solution is capable of assessing the difference between, say, one camera provider against the other camera provider, or showing how different configurations of your security design can be more effective. So for instance, if you remove the guard and replace that guard with a camera, we can show the cost benefit analysis for those changes. So having this type of solution allows us to analyze the effectiveness of various solutions, including next-gen technology, such as camera analytics and things of that nature, to whereas where ports and other customers are just provided marketing spec sheets and kind of the general knowledge, we're able to effectively really thoroughly analyze these solutions to determine how valuable they are to the organizations. So using that knowledge, we put together kind of a list of security and safety technologies that we'll run through. But before diving into those, really quickly wanted to discuss the Port Security Grant Program and the spending for U.S. seaports. So here on the right-hand side, we have a chart from AAPA's State of the Freight back in 2018 that describes the Seaports' anticipated spending for the Port Security Grant Program and those funds. Clearly, this was before coronavirus, so this chart is now skewed more towards safety and health solutions as well. But here you can see three of the top spending topics here were for upgrading technology, enhancing physical security, and cybersecurity. So for the Port Security Grant Program, they typically have 5 to 6 key issues that they're focused on that year that you should address in your investment justification. But this year they've added cybersecurity, which is typically one of their enduring security policies, and they've separated that as a key issue. Even going as far as saying that projects that sufficiently address the cybersecurity national priority will have their final review of their investment justification score increased by a multiplier of 20%, which is a big deal for Seaports. So if you're able to tie your investment justifications back to those cybersecurity initiatives, you can have that investment justification increased by a multiplier of 20%. The other enduring security priorities that Seaport should be focused on are enhancing the protection of soft targets in crowded places, such as cruise terminals, addressing emerging threats, such as drones, and also effective planning for risk response and collaboration, training and awareness campaigns, equipment and capital projects that support port resilience, and lastly, exercises for security and response. So as we go through these future trends and these future safety and security technologies, be sure to think of how you can correlate those or relate those back to these enduring security priorities, and also tie them back to the key issue of enhancing cybersecurity as well. So for future trends of the seaport industry, it was very hard to narrow these down, but we focused these into 4 categories that we've seen become prevalent over these last few years, especially following coronavirus. But the first of which is being automation. So automation applies to all aspects of the seaport, including operations and security. But automating anything in your seaport allows the focus to shift from mundane tasks to higher priority responsibilities for your personnel. So this is being driven by machine learning and AI, which are in turn driving automation and efficiencies in both labor and cost for your seaport. So we're already seeing fully automated terminals such as the Port of Los Angeles automated terminal there and elsewhere. But we're going to see a lot more automation being introduced into seaports and their operations here over the next few years. We've also seen data and video analytics being heavily prevalent in critical infrastructure and seaports as well. So data analytics have been around for a long time, and video analytics have recently become enhanced through machine learning and AI as well. But these video analytics can be utilized for safety, security, and operations, whether it's counting vehicles or passengers or alerting to unsafe behaviors. They can be used for a wide range of purposes, and we'll talk about these here down the road in a future slide. You're also able to incorporate video data analytics to optimize operations. So data analytics have been used for a long time now, but there's typically an issue with port environments in terms of video analytics and having to get around container stacks and the very busy operations that seaports are used to. You also have intrusion on personnel, whether that's privacy or changing your personnel's processes in order to collect this data to better optimize your port. And then lastly, you have high expenses associated with these programs, especially with video analytics and getting those deployed correctly. That can lead to a very high expense. And again, we'll talk about these later here in the next few slides. But as a third trend, we have efficiencies. So similar to automation, I wanted to call out efficiencies separately because of the coronavirus and the recent impacts it's had on all of us, including the seaports. So following COVID-19, seaports are facing very substantial budget reductions and uncertainty in the industry. We've all seen staff and funding shortages, including our partners, such as the Customs and Border Protection Agency. So we're all dealing with shortages, budget reductions, and a lot of uncertainty following coronavirus. So we're all, including seaports, looking for any potential for more efficient operations and systems in order to drive costs down and optimize our operations. And lastly, as a future trend, energy and environment, specifically clean energy. Seaport leaders are sharing a commitment to sustainability, clean energy, and the health of coastal ecosystems that we operate out of. So here we've seen seaports monitoring and implementing policies to protect their local environments, even as going as far as employing alternative fuels, such as electricity fuel cells, solar power, and even working towards carbon neutral or carbon negative operations as well. So these are going to be heavily prevalent trends as we move forward into what we call the new normal following coronavirus and also into the future as well. So what we've done is broken down these solutions into what we call the future of seaport security, as well as the future of operations and safety. So a lot of these solutions and applications will apply to a lot of applications within your port. So some of them may be security and safety oriented, which is something to keep in mind because a big theme of this presentation is showing how you can relate these not only to the Port Security Grant Program's priorities, but also to multiple aspects of your business, as well as your IT and safety and security teams. So obviously with cybersecurity being the key issue for this year's Port Security Grant Program, we wanted to start off on this, but please keep in mind we had to keep a lot of solutions trimmed down to an hour. So we had to keep these slides pretty brief, but of course can talk in more detail at a later time about these solutions and capabilities. So with cybersecurity and AI, there are a lot of cybersecurity or network assessment solutions or audit solutions available, as well as various monitoring tools, some that are automated, some even have teams that will work for your IT department and constantly monitor your network to alert to any breaches. With this being such a big key issue for the Port Security Grant Program, this is a great year to get involved with cybersecurity and get your IT team involved with the Port Security Grant Program. But here for a big note for cybersecurity is to ensure that you're collaborating with your IT team and not only implementing lessons learned, but also action items into your physical security response plans following any cyber or network assessments or audits. So typically, we've seen ports that work cohesively together all as one department, and we've seen some ports that act independently, so each department is siloed and only talking to each other every now and then when a security threat or concern comes up. So we've also seen in the industry a lot of collaboration through information sharing and analysis companies. I've listed 2 of these companies down here for your reference. There are a lot of these collaboration companies and capabilities out there these days, but it's extremely important that we collaborate as an industry and talk about these threats and have these publicly listed. So some of what these companies do, they'll list blacklisted IPs, they'll list known threats or any regional threats and share this information with you and your IT team. So you can stay on top of these threats and be informed about everything going on, not just locally in your state or region, but also throughout the US and throughout the industry. So these are very important organizations to become a part of due to that ability to stay ahead of any threats that are facing your seaport organization. Lastly, you also have cyber alerts and machine learning. So as I mentioned, you can have cybersecurity teams as a service. You can also have automated alerts and systems that either use machine learning or AI to alert to these breaches. But taking it a step further, correlating those system alerts and breaches to other system alerts and breaches. So for example, an access control outage followed by a cyber security breach. If your teams are siloed and say your IT team's taking control of the cyber breach and your security team's taking control of the access control breach, they may not be aware that this is a coordinated attack. But with some of the new cyber monitoring tools, you can actually correlate these 2 alerts and even automate using AI some of the response or decision support following that alert, so where your system's automatically protecting itself and taking the appropriate steps to deter those threats. So this is something to work towards, and just mainly mentioning that collaboration is key here in terms of all of your departments working together to address these shared goals. Outside of cybersecurity, we also have video analytics and alerts. So analytics can be applied for security, safety, operations, you name it. There's such a wide range of applicability for video analytics. These can be used to alert to unsafe behaviors, such as truck drivers exiting their vehicles where they're not supposed to on your port, say in unsafe areas. or even alerting to various security breaches or small vessel detections and things of that nature. So video analytics are heavily dependent on your current infrastructure and environment. So you have some options here as well with edge-based analytics or server-based analytics, basically being on the camera or within the cloud or on the back end on your server. So there is some cost and capability options and flexibility. I've included a link here in this slide for you to go to at your own time. So if you want to look at the pros and cons of these solutions, you can do so. But there are a lot of options when it does come to video analytics. But there are many variables that can affect your type of deployment. These include what's being monitored or what the video analytics is supposed to alert to, the processing speed, the storage, and much, much more. But it's important to note in our experience and what we've seen throughout our customers and assessments is many organizations have implemented a full solution and they fail. And this is because, one, you need to incorporate a good amount of time for those video analytics to learn your environment and also the designated behaviors or actions and alerts that they're supposed to be providing. So typically when you have a demonstration of video analytics solutions, you'll get a great demonstration in a well-lit area such as the screenshot with an open parking lot and great lighting. But typically in your Seaport environment, you're working with a pretty harsh environment. You've got salt in the air, you've got container stacks, heavy operations with multiple things moving on an ongoing basis. So video analytics can be very testy in a Seaport environment. So here, within video analytics and deployments, it's important to note with this technology that it's best to start small with a pilot or a small pilot or even multiple pilots and go from there and either fail or scale. Because we've seen some customers that implement a video analytics solution and will try to go for everything in one deployment. But when it comes down to it, the environment either messes up, the video analytics can't alert what it said it could, and then they have to start over from scratch or go out and get a new grant. So with video analytics, again, it's best to start small and scale from there, but also just take into account the multiple factors and options you have to make sure that you're choosing the right solution if you do go for video analytics. For security, we also have sentries and drones. So we've been seeing these become very prevalent these days with the advancements of robotic sentries, such as GhostRobotics and Boston Dynamics, as well as the prevalence of drones in the industry. So I know we all know as drones as threats, but they can also be used for solutions in our seaports as well. So similar to video analytics, these can be applied to a wide variety of applications, depending on the types of sensors and systems that are mounted to the sentry or drone. So you could have anything from mapping technology to hazmat sensors to robotic arms and even edge video analytics for the drones to detecting anomalous behavior. So these are especially useful in unsafe or hazardous areas where it may not be safe or secure to send a human in there or any of your personnel to respond to, say, a fire or chemical release or anything like that. So these can replace routine patrol for both security and safety checks, or even be autonomously deployed following a security incident or some sort of emergency. So you can quickly get eyes on scene and then share that video or that critical data to your responders or to the emergency personnel that are on the scene. So in some cases, we've seen these so-called the robo-dogs being stored in the doghouse to where they'll be on a routine patrol or they'll be deployed following an emergency, and same with the drones. These can be very easily and quickly deployed, or we've even seen some cases where they're stored in a ballistic housing. And then once that emergency is activated, the ballistic housing opens up and shoots the drone in the air to go do its thing. So a lot of applications for these sentries and drones, but it's important to note too for the advanced sentries being the robo-dogs and any robots that you would implement, not the drones, it's important to look into their pathfinding technology. Some of these drones or robots will use sort of the Roomba approach, if you can think of your home vacuum, that kind of maps out your house as it's going along and stores that data. But some of these robo-sentries will have no pathfinding technology or very basic technology to where if they get knocked over or knocked off the path, then they're rendered useless. So it's very important that you look into how they're performing that pathfinding and to ensure that it can be flexible and run your facility versus just staying on a customized or configured route as well. So on the other end of the spectrum, other than looking at drones as a solution, I know we're all very aware of the threats that drones pose to our seaports and our critical infrastructure. So with this drone technology, there's many solutions to this very familiar threat. There's a variety of solutions out there that have been out there that are capable of detecting these unmanned aircraft systems. So drone monitoring here falls into 4 categories, being the radio frequency analyzers, acoustic sensors being microphones, optical sensors such as cameras and video analytics, as well as radar technology. But when you look at countermeasures, these are grouped into 3 categories, being physically destroying that drone, neutralizing the drone, or taking control of the drone, which in the end for seaports is the best option, is being able to take control of that drone and land it in a safer environment. So here, something important to note is there's plenty of solutions on the market today, but ports and their legislative teams or legal teams need to ensure that these countermeasures that they're looking towards or looking to implement align with the current regulations and legislations that critical infrastructures and seaports have in place today. With this being such an emerging technology and an emerging threat, legislation is changing on pretty much an annual basis. And we have seen a case where somebody acquires a countermeasure technology only to find out that new legislation has come out to render that useless. They say they can't use it at their site. So for these countermeasures, these include RF jammers, which disrupt the pilot's control of the drone, GPS spoofers, which take control of the drone, which again is, in our opinion, the best solution for the seaports. You also have high-powered microwave or EMPs that basically disrupt the electronic devices on the drones. Again, these are probably the worst case scenario or worst countermeasure, because in a port environment, that can affect a lot of your systems if they're nearby. And again, if you're disrupting that pilot's control or you're disrupting the electronic devices, the drone's going to fall wherever it's flying over, so it could land in a very unsafe or hazardous area. Then you also have things like nets and guns, high-powered lasers, or even birds of prey being used to detect and counter these drones. But one thing to look into here as well is to make sure your countermeasure that you're looking to implement can integrate with the monitoring and detection tools that you're using, because in some cases, these countermeasures can be paired with the detection technology to autonomously perform this work. To when a drone is detected, that countermeasure is automatically deployed and that drone is taken to a safe location. So a lot of options here, but again, just important to find the best solution for your environment and also work with your legal team to ensure it's the best solution and that you're actually allowed to utilize that solution in your environment. Second to last, we have emergency management and collaboration. Being seaports and critical infrastructure, I'm sure you're all very aware or already have a common operating picture or C2 system in place at your industry or your port. But here, there's just a couple of notes regarding streamlining or automating that necessary data sharing, is to ensure that your platforms are able to collaborate or share that data both inside your organization and externally with other organizations, being response partners or partners such as the Coast Guard or Customs and Border Protection. So here, a few capabilities that we've seen being the next-gen capabilities for these systems is being not only able to alert to an incident, but being able to tie those alerts to your workflows and standard operating procedures. So in the event there is an emergency or an alert, your user is prompted with your organization's standard operating procedures and workflows, and even streamlining or automating the responses through those systems and integrated sensors. Also, the newer platforms on the market today have built-in sharing policies for data feeds and alerts. So not only will the user be prompted with the appropriate standard operating procedure, they will also be automated or automatically able to share that information both internally at the seaport or their organization and with external partners. So all this can be facilitated once that alert is received, the user prompted with everything they need to know, and so your partners that are responding to the incident. A lot of these systems are moving to a hosted or cloud-based infrastructure, even going as far as software as a service installation, so you can quickly activate these systems when you need to, or pay a monthly fee or annual license for these solutions. But here, critical infrastructure, from what we've seen, is moving from localized systems to regional or statewide awareness solutions that can be shared for statewide or regional events. In our experience, we're always fighting the argument of data security versus data sharing. And it's just important to note that just because the solution is going to be a cloud-based solution doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be less secure than it would be for an on-prem solution. So just be sure to talk with your IT team and your solution provider for the best options for your Seaport or your organization, depending on your needs and your regional or local or statewide needs. Here, I also wanted to include, just because it is a free application, the screenshot that you see is the Android Tactical Assault Kit. So a few platforms also provide mobile applications themselves or plugins to tools like these, being the ATAC or the SIGTAC application. These are very critical tools because what this does is share the common operating picture or C2 picture with the field responders or personnel on the ground. So not only do they get the command and control picture on their application, but they also become a track within that common operating picture. And one of the cool things about the ATAC or the SIGTAC application is the field officer can then pull up his camera on his phone and become a camera within that common operating picture, so they can disseminate that video feed or the on-scene video feed to all the other responders or the command and control center that you're operating out of. So just a few different applications and trends that we've seen in those common operating picture and response capabilities that we wanted to point out. And lastly, for the security tools would be security and detection optimization, using these 3D modeling and simulation tools to understand your stacked security systems. So these 3D models can be utilized for security design and assessments that reflect the port, its security systems, and response plans. It's important to note that once this model or digital twin is built of your port, it becomes an extremely valuable asset for your organization because then it can be used for future assessments and analyses, or even engineering purposes or redesigns of your facility or buildings. So here, with the 3D modeling tool, once detection systems such as cameras are plugged into the model, you can quickly perform analysis such as percentage of detection throughout your port and load heat maps or things of that nature to identify detection coverage and pinpoint any blind spots. So what this does is utilize a 3D model of your facility as it stands today, and then you plug in your sensors, systems, standard operating procedures, and response plans, and you can use it for a general security design all the way up to a full-on vulnerability analysis to see how your current security configuration stands up against the threats that are facing your organization, whether those are drones, active shooters, or mass weapons of destruction. So there's really a lot of flexibility in what you can do with these models, but it basically allows you to rely or get away from relying solely on qualitative analyses performed by subject matter experts and move towards more quantitative information. So actually getting reports on the return on investment that you're going to be receiving from changing your security or procuring new systems or sensors. So here, security directors or users can plug in thousands of design variants that can quickly be analyzed through the model to optimize your security's effectiveness and reduce the cost. So following 9/11 back in 2001, critical infrastructure as a whole saw a huge amount of security being invested into all of the types of industries, nuclear, seaports, and any critical infrastructure around the United States. And now we're starting to see the cost of those security installments, and really the qualitative analyses that have led to those security installments have just been mainly rack and stack. So stack access control on top of cameras, on top of detection and delay systems such as barriers or fences, to where we really created this impenetrable facility, but that gets very expensive to maintain those systems and sensors. So rather than just relying on a camera reseller or some subject matter expert saying, just add 30 more cameras and your detection will be fine, you can actually use these tools to optimize that security configuration to not only ensure that you're getting the most bang for your buck, but also making sure that you're effective against the threats that are facing your facility. So a lot of capability comes out of these tools and a lot of information and reports that allow you to quantify the physical security and response effectiveness at your facility based upon the cost of those optimizations. So performing very quick and easy cost benefit analyses for your organization becomes very easy with these tools. Moving forward to the future of Seaport operational and safety solutions, again, we had to trim these down. There's a lot of solutions out there on the market that can be used to solve the unique needs at your Seaport. But these are some of the newer technologies or the more enhanced technologies that have been updated over the past couple of years that we think were applicable to include in this presentation. So starting with chemical detection and alerting, this is something that we've seen be very widely accepted throughout the industry, especially for locations that have to deal with oil and gas providers, such as Texas and California, or ports that are dealing with LNG vessels. So now there's new sensors that can detect and alert to various chemical releases, and more importantly, the types of chemicals and the volume of chemicals that are being released. So previously, there have been many types of chemical or leak release detection systems, but most air monitors that were in place could only alert to a leak or release, but not identify the volume or the specific chemical that's being released. So depending on the type and scale of the leak or release at a port, the effects can be devastating. We've seen this in Beirut. We've seen this in all sorts of instances, even in Texas, to where any sort of small incident can turn into a very large incident that not only affects the port, but also affects the cascading effects that apply to the economic, whether locally or even in the national commerce or global commerce, if you want to look at the Suez Canal and the Ever Given stuck in there, and the effects that that had just by shutting down one pathway to the global commerce and the supply chain. So obviously we're trying to protect our seaports, but this capability gives our responders the critical information they need to more effectively respond to any sort of leak or release at your organization or a partnering organization that is either nearby you or that you're trying to monitor. So these new sensors that are available can detect chemical-specific identification up to 3 miles away. So this uses infrared technology to detect the specific chemical. And what you see here is a picture of the technology showing the flume or the cloud of chemicals and also identifying the specific chemical that's being released. So this data can be integrated into your Common Operating Picture or C2 system and quickly shared with the appropriate response personnel so they can more effectively respond to the incident at hand. So these sensors can be mounted, whether they're on a stationary pole or they can be mounted to mobile vehicles or even the robotic sentries that we showed earlier. But again, this data can be quickly shared, whether it's through the system or through the Common Operating Picture, so your responders are more able to effectively respond to the chemical leak or release that is happening. We've also seen some new technology coming out for data analytics. So we call this non-intrusive data analytics. And when I talk about intrusive, I'm referring to having to change your operations, having to download applications, having to give your personnel, your truck drivers coming through your seaports actual tags so they can scan in and out of your facility, or having to implement expensive video analytics to get this type of data. This new solution allows you to track personnel through your organization or through your site using mobile devices and the Wi-Fi signal to where the users who are being tracked don't have to download an application or even log on to your Wi-Fi. So once they get in range of what they call the ID tags within your facility, a unique ID is assigned to their mobile device, and they will then be tracked throughout your facility as they move throughout the seaport or throughout your building or cruise terminal. So here it's important to note that the ID tag placed on the mobile device will be randomized, so you're not able to assign a name or an identifier to that ID tag, but it does remember devices. So if a new device leaves the port and comes back, that device will be remembered and correlated to its previous visit. So here, the ID tags can pick up a mobile device from up to 250 feet away. They can be placed throughout your facility to utilize or collect data that can then be utilized for operations and security purposes. So this data can be used to alert to certain instances, whether those are security breaches. Say you know that nobody's going to be in the area from 3 to 7 a.m. and you want to receive an alert anytime somebody enters that area. Rather than implementing video analytics or some sort of access control, these ID tags can be used as long as that person has a cell phone to pick up that personnel or that security breach. These can also be used to track dwell times or waiting times for truck drivers. I know I've talked to a lot of seaports about tracking truck drivers and the most cost-effective way to do this. Well, this provides a very cost-effective way to track not only truck drivers, but other personnel throughout your facility or seaport, and provide a variety of reports using this reporting technology, which is web-based, that you can see here is a heat map showing where the users were in the downtown area. So the important note here is that camera or video analytics can be expensive and very tedious to deploy throughout a seaport, but these ID tags are very inexpensive and can provide similar data for your seaport, whether that's operational or security focus, and it provides that capability right out of the box. Another technology we've seen, which has been around obviously for a long time, being the surveys and assessment reporting tools. But we've seen a new technology that now provides an application to your ground forces, the people walking the docks, or security patrol around your seaport or organization, to where they have an application on their mobile device and are now able to pinpoint any concerns or observations that they have around your facility. So this cost-effective program analyzes information as it relates to 5 key components to a safer environment, mainly revolving emergency planning, training, equipment, collaboration, and communication capabilities. So think of this as your standard risk or vulnerability assessment, but rather than performing this every year or every 2 years as mandated, you can actually have your personnel basically add to this report over time just using their mobile phone while they're doing their day-to-day 9-to-5 routines. So this system allows users to input observations and upload pictures or videos to be included as that final report. And the system uses an advanced algorithm to basically calculate the data and provide organizational managers with a comprehensive risk analysis of the site and each building at the site. So basically, as your patrolmen or as your officers or your dock hands are walking throughout the port, they can note any observations and not only alert management to these, whether they're failures, whether they're unlocked gates, they can notify management, but this also gets included in that report. So whether you're pulling that report on an annual basis or collectively looking at that report over time, you can stay up to date with any issues around your port that have been inputted by your personnel as they're doing their day-to-day work. So this system categorizes the findings into strengths, vulnerability, and recommendations. But again, this provides a comprehensive security risk survey that can be pulled again at any time or pulled for those assessments. So you can use this data, and then when you do perform those annual or biannual assessments, you can go in and extensively scan the site and then use this data to supplement what you've learned. We've also seen a lot of seaports moving forward with automated berth scheduling and reporting. So there's a lot of solutions out in the market, including Clientport and other solutions. But similar to the automation and efficiencies we talked about, with these automated solutions and applications, you're allowing your harbor masters to now focus, or any personnel handling these berths and scheduling, to focus on more important tasks. So your harbor masters and agents can submit or approve a berth request and basically let the system handle the rest, including the processing, the reporting, and sending reports to invoicing or financing. So most of these systems now provide a public-facing berth application on your website, so agents can submit the berth request from there, and simply all the harbor master has to do from there is approve that berth request and assign it the berth. So here in the screenshot, you see the dock size, you see the vessel size, and the time that that vessel is going to be at that berth. So these dashboards can be configured or tailored to your unique operations. It allows your users or harbor masters to quickly view any berth applications and relevant data. So by integrating this information with your command and control system or your common operating picture, you can actually further automate these processes by tying geofences or zones within that common operating picture or C2 system to this berth data. So when that vessel enters the zone and leaves that zone, the system is autonomously marking the actual time of arrival and departure. So there's a variety of ways these things can be set up, but again, as seaports move towards automation and efficiencies, these are going to start to become the norm in the seaport. to have these processes basically be replaced with the automation that you see here available in the application. We also have emissions tracking and reporting tools that we've seen being developed in the industry. So here, Seaports and their partners are able to monitor and report on overall emissions, not only in your local environment, but throughout your coast and your environment that you're representing or working out of. So here, the solutions are using advanced algorithms, the vessel locations, and the data transmitted through AIS to basically compile the emissions that those vessels are releasing and tracking those emissions in these emission control areas. So here, users can automatically monitor, alert to, and respond or report on the various emissions being released in their environment. And you can actually configure the parameters and locations to monitor the multiple emission types, including particulate matters, nitrogen oxides, and sulfur oxides throughout your environment. So this provides scalable views and customizable cell groupings that provide a comprehensive glimpse of the overall emissions in your environment, but can also be narrowed down to a specific cell that you see there in the screenshot. Users are also able to track the emissions of a single vessel or multiple vessels, and even view color-coded track histories of those vessels and the emissions that they've been releasing as they come in and out of your port. So as ports move towards a more clean energy or clean environment around their seaport, this provides a way for them to track those emissions in your environment, as compared to having to have those vessels put on a monitoring device in their vessels, which is going to take legislation or a very green company to move forward with that. It's only going to cost the shipping company money to release the emissions that they're actually releasing in the environment. And then lastly, for the safety and operational tools, we thought it'd be important following coronavirus in 2020 to mention the health scanning and sterilization tools. There's many tools out there that are used to monitor and alert to potential infections and also sterilize offices and terminals. So again, these various scanning and cleaning solutions have been on the market for years, but recently following coronavirus and the global pandemic, they've been enhanced and applied to your unique operations being Seaport and critical infrastructure to make them even more available and applicable to your operations. So here, for instance, the temperature scanning kiosk that you see at the top of the screenshot here can actually be paired with your access control, or even go as far as using facial recognition technology to, say, replace an access control entry way to your office or your terminal. So not only you're getting the pass-fail technology reporting on the personnel's temperature, but you're also getting the access control plug-in to basically say this employee has arrived or entered through this door. Also for the sterilization tools, both handheld and autonomous sterilization solutions have been utilized mainly in the healthcare industry, hospitals, but have been widespread following the coronavirus to ensure port offices and terminals are disinfected. So these can actually be programmed to clean certain areas similar to those robotic sentries. They can be programmed to go around the cruise terminal to ensure your terminals are safe and healthy. So on top of acquiring these tools to utilize for your own health and safety and your personnel and your visitors, these tools also provide your employees and visitors with confidence or peace of mind, knowing that your Seaport's taking a proactive approach to addressing the coronavirus and the health and safety at your terminal. And I know it's especially important for cruise terminals out there who've all seen significant losses due to the disruption in the cruise industry to get back to that new normal and get cruises operating again. It's tools like these and proactive approaches like these that are going to help you adjust to that new normal and really convince the passengers to come back and get back on the cruise lines. So one important feature we saw with these new technologies, or old technologies, but a new feature, is not only integration with the access control and facial recognition, but also being able to plug and play with these solutions, because typically they took a long time to configure. But now these are very easy to just plug in, connect to the Wi-Fi or the internet, and connect to your devices, and they're good to go. So that's been a big enhancement for these solutions, being able to plug and play, and then also integrate with your existing operations or security systems. So to wrap up the presentation, I know we quickly moved through a lot of available solutions and capabilities. Again, we had to squeeze a lot into a very short amount of time. But to kind of wrap up the whole presentation, what we wanted to focus on was implementing comprehensive solutions for collaborative seaports. So comprehensive, we mean that these solutions can apply to multiple aspects of your seaport, whereas collaboration, we're talking both about internal collaboration with your departments and externally with your local stakeholders and responders. So as we can see, the technology and seaport security and safety solutions that we showed today and other solutions that we didn't get to show due to our time constraints are advancing at a very rapid pace. So here it's important for seaports to relate these future trends and these advancements with technology back to the Port Security Grant Program priorities, especially being cybersecurity with that 20% increase that you can receive on your investment justification. So here again, Seaports and their partners will benefit drastically from having a thorough or comprehensive understanding of their stack security design and response plans, both locally at the seaport and together as a region or a community. Because again, once you have that understanding, you can better address exactly what your port needs, rather than just relying on qualitative analyses or subject matter experts to rack and stack that security where you may be overpaying for certain systems. Also, with the advanced solutions available today, seaports can apply one solution to address a wide range of needs across multiple aspects of your operations. So it's extremely important to collaborate with your operations and your IT teams to determine shared needs and goals. And I know that sounds like a no-brainer, but in our experience, we have seen ports and other customers who act as siloed departments who only talk when they're forced to. But it's very important that you talk to those organizations or departments and really communicate with them to talk about shared goals and needs to see how you can best address those potentially through a comprehensive solution. It's also important that you collaborate externally outside of the port with your local region or state. So here, you're not going to listen to the state and get the best solution for the state. You need to get the best solution for your organization. But as long as you're having those conversations, you can all work towards a common goal. Because in the end, when it comes times for an emergency or an active event at the port, seconds save lives. So the more you're able to collaborate and better respond to that incident, the better we'll all be and the safer your personnel will be. So big thing I want to note here is there are a lot of solutions, a lot of advancements, a lot of next-gen technology out there on the market. There were things that we didn't get to mention, such as emergency communications or internet devices. So if your power goes out or your internet goes out, say from a hurricane, you can basically have a generator in this device and immediately enable port-wide internet or communications or even satellite communications at your port. There's a lot of solutions like this. And when you think of area security, don't just think about our AVERT suite of solutions, because yes, while we do have the AVERT suite of solutions that apply to the physical security lifecycle, we are also a solution provider. So we work with our customers to develop the best solution for their needs. And we'd certainly love the chance to follow up with you about your unique needs at your organization or your seaport and talk to you about potential solutions or ways to address those needs at your port. Because if you've seen one port, you've seen one port. They're all different and they all have different needs. So there's multiple ways to address these common problems. So again, I want to thank you for your time today coming out to this webinar and taking the time to listen to all this. And also, I will now give it back to Paula and APA to see if you have any questions and to go through the Q&A and then also to wrap up the webinar.
Thank you so much, Coleman. I'm always so impressed by how rapidly technology advances and by how many applications there are to the ports industry. So thank you so much for this presentation and for sharing it with our audience today. We have just a couple of minutes for some questions. It looks like there was a question that was posed earlier in your presentation. Somebody wanted to know, can you elaborate on what the Air Force is using 3D modeling for?
Yeah, so that was probably a question at the beginning. We did address the 3D modeling as a security tool, but specifically at the Air Force. As I mentioned, they're rebuilding that base of the future down in Tyndall Air Force Base in Panama City. So what they're doing is basically implementing all these various base designs and security configurations to determine the most cost-effective way to implement their security and response. So rather than just building structures and then performing security assessments afterwards, they're actually taking a proactive approach and basically modeling that facility, running assessments, and then determining the best security solutions for that new base of the future using those 3D modeling and simulations.
I would just add to that they also a couple specific use cases. They're really concerned about active shooters. So having a digital twin, one of the things that they did, and it's called a gate crasher, where somebody gets a vehicle and tries to smash through the gate and get to a critical area on the base. So when you have the digital twin, you can simulate that and then ask questions like, if someone crashes through the gate, for example, can they get to the flight line, right, to the runway where all their aircraft is? Can they get to a location where there's a lot of personnel? And so you can ask those questions, and if they can get there, how fast do they do? And how can we respond to that? How can we look at our response times, and how can we make sure that, how can we stop them? And so it gives them a way to plan out, and then they can take that information and build it into their ConOps and their response, and build that into their command and control system. So it's more than just a construction too. It's how to deal with those kinds of threats.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't see any other questions in the chat. If any questions come up, your contact information is posted here and can be found on our directory. So thanks again to Coleman and Greg for this very insightful presentation. I hope all of our attendees feel like you gained helpful insights. Before you sign off, I do hope you'll hang in for just a couple more minutes so I can share some upcoming events and promotions that we have that I think may interest you. So let me steal the screen sharing from you.
Yeah.
Let's see. I will share my screen. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. I'll make this presentation mode. So our next webinar that you can mark your calendars for is going to be hosted by another new member, Nearshore Networks. It's titled Weather Response Through a Single Source of Truth. That's coming up on May 5th at 2 p.m. So we'll be sending out invites for that, but in the meantime, you can mark your calendars. And then last Monday, we celebrated Ports Day, Western Hemisphere Ports Day. That was April 5th, which is recognizing our workforce and the role that they have been playing and continue to play throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Since we are celebrating our workforce, we want to encourage and make it easier for our members and future members to develop their skills. So throughout the month of April, we are offering all of our current members who wish to send 5 or more of their staff to AAPA's annual convention in Austin, Texas, from September 26th through the 29th, a discount of 20% off the registration fee. And that's a value of $1,600. So by attending the annual convention, that's an excellent and highly beneficial opportunity for your colleagues to network and learn and develop the skills that they need to grow in their role. So that to take advantage of that offer, you would need to register 5 or more of your staff by contacting my colleague Renita Gross at rgross@aapa-ports.org by the end of this month, April 30th. And then if you are not a current AAPA member, we have something for you too. AAPA is also offering any company that joins in the month of April 2 complimentary registrations to any AAPA Anywhere event of your choice within the first year of your membership. And that opportunity will give you and your staff access to cutting-edge professional development programs and events. And this is a value of $800. So, so we encourage you to consider the programs that we have coming up. And additionally, because we know most of our new members join to gain access and visibility to our membership, we are also entering all of our new members who join in the month of April into a drawing to win a free 2-month digital advertisement in AAPA's Seaports Advisory Weekly e-newsletter, which is a value of $500. So to take advantage of that offer, all you have to do is become a member of AAPA by April 30th. And we will automatically apply the credits for the AAPA Anywhere to your account, and we would also automatically enter you into the drawing. So if you have any questions about AAPA membership or about presenting a webinar or about any of the events or programs, benefits, or resources that we have to offer, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. My contact information is here on the screen. It's also on our website. This concludes our program for today. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And thanks again to our presenters, Coleman and Greg, for sharing their knowledge and expertise with us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.